5 o'clock. It's time to open the first bond hearing. I'm going to read the bond hearing in a minute, but first I've got a couple remarks. The first bond hearing will be presented by Ann Welch. And we're asking the public for questions or comments. And we're advising you that the bond and the budget hearing is not for debate. All comments made by the public will not be debated, but will be taken into consideration by the Board of Selectmen. The public also needs to be advised that the board will not be making any decisions on the bonds or the budget at this time. The only motions made are to open and close the public bond hearings, and the budget hearing kept the hearing open for a minimum of half an hour. So the first one is 501. It's going to run 30 minutes. It's Article 2, the Sewer, Stormwater, Roadway, and Street Project, Sub-Area 2. I'll read the article before Ann makes her presentation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,322,300 for the purpose of Sub-Area 2 repair and replacement of the sewer lines within the existing wastewater collection system and any other costs related thereto, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $6,322,300 of bonds or notes in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33:1 as amended, with the amount of such bonds or notes to be reduced by any grant funding received for the project, to authorize the selectmen to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project. To authorize the selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and the maturity and the other terms thereof, and to authorize the selectmen to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. If the town does not receive grant awards of at least 45% of the amount of the appropriation, it will not undertake the project until they receive the 45%. Bond payments are anticipated to come from sewer users for this bond. The estimated tax impact is 0 per 1,000. 3/5 of a valid vote is required. It was recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3 to nothing. It is recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 7 to nothing. And Stan. Excuse me, Ann.
Or anything, or? Good right here. All right, so I'm Stanley Welch. I work for a Dufresne Group out of St. Johnsbury, Vermont, and we worked for the town of Littleton to put together a preliminary engineering report, basically looking at the sub-area 2 area of town, specifically the sewer infrastructure. That's sub-area 2 highlighted in orange. It's probably a little difficult for everybody to see, but it's West Main Street from pretty much the Public Works garage down all the way through Main Street to where the diner is at Saranac Street, and then the Rock Stream development, Far Hill Road, Top Main, Rock Stream Drive, and that whole area of town back in there. So the need for the project, it was broken down. We looked at the existing conditions. We hired a wastewater contractor to come out and do a CCTV inspection of all the sewer lines in the area for us to do a conditional evaluation, and the results were very poor. The sewer in that area of town is in pretty tough condition. And this was all stemmed from an infiltration and inflow study that was performed by a separate firm in 2012. Inflow meaning rainwater or stormwater that gets directly placed into the sewer through manholes or sump pumps or root gutters, and infiltration being groundwater infiltrating the system through broken or cracked sewer mains or manholes. So the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant, permanent capacity is 1.5 million gallons a day. Normal operation, you're around 600,000 gallons a day, which is about right for operation design of a wastewater treatment plant. But for an example, this fourth bullet point down, you can see in January, after a heavy rainstorm and snow melt, there was an event that was 4.4 million gallons a day of wastewater treatment plant. So over double, almost 3 times the design capacity of the plant, basically as a result of snow melt and rainwater, which is a result of influent infiltration and targeting specifically sub-areas 5 and sub-area 2, which are 5 is under construction, which was on the bill last year, and then 2 is what we looked at this year during this evaluation. So these are just some pictures you can kind of see. These are actually inside sewer mains in town. These are on Main Street, I believe. It's clay tile pipe, and there are areas where it's just broken, collapsed on itself, roof infiltration, cracked joints, separated joints, holes, misaligned joints, just a lot of different issues that stem from construction methods and materials all the way to just aging. So the proposed improvements, based off of conditional evaluation, there are some alternatives you can consider, doing rehab work, like relining the sewer lines and everything, but because of the condition of the mains in this area of town, we're determined to be so poor, we're basically recommending open trench excavation and replacement of almost all the manholes and all the sewer mains in the area. So this would be modified to modern materials, PVC sewer mains, and precast concrete manholes. Project timeline, so step 1, that was to actually execute the preliminary study that we just executed. And highlighting sub-area 2 as a high area of town for subject to infiltration and inflow. We completed the manhole inspections and the TV inspection of the sewer mains and sewer manholes in the area of town. We also did basement inspections of as many of the homes and businesses in this area to determine if there were any other sources of inflow, mainly sump pumps or roof drains or anything, yard perimeter drains that would be plumbed directly into people's sewer services. And then authored and submitted a preliminary engineering report to the town and funding agencies, the USDA and the state. So at this point, we have applied for funding through rural development. In the process, as you can see, it's pending due to the government shutdown. Rural development was not funded, so they are processing applications at this time. Hopefully, in the future, they will be. And step 4, positive bond vote for the project. And then design and construction. So this is just a table outlining the project costs. You can see how it breaks down in terms of construction, engineering contingencies, legal fees, easements. Bottom line, just over $6.3 million total project cost, and that's in 2020 dollars. Benefits of the project, you're looking at overall decreased total flow to the wastewater treatment plant, which alleviates a lot of the risk of potentially violating a permit by discharging undertreated wastewater to high-level storm events. Reduced risk of backups or breaks in the sewer lines or services in this area of town, people's homes, people's businesses. You're eliminating, or you're greatly reducing the risk of leaking any kind of sewage into the groundwater in the area. So right now, with the condition of these pipes, with the voids and cracks and separated joints that exist, there's potential for not only infiltration to get into the sewer mains, which overflows the wastewater treatment plant, but also the sewer getting into the ground and leaching into potential groundwater sources. And another benefit is the increased access to new, larger manholes that will be easier for the Public Works Department to access and maintain, which will just prolong sustainability and be better for them to be able to work on the system if there are events that need it. So this slide kind of outlines some of the borrowing alternatives that we considered. Local borrowing through a bond bank, which was an estimated sewer rate increase of about 38%. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which is federal money that's administered through state programs, that equated to about a 28% rate increase on the sewer user rate. And then the rural development, which I said we already applied for there. Once they get back to work, they'll process the application. And that equated, assuming a 45% grant, that equated to about a 19.1% rate increase for the users. Now, this is just a summary of the points that we covered: improved reliability, improved sustainability, new equipment, or new materials, new construction methods, reduced flow to the wastewater treatment plant, reduced infiltration, reduced inflow. And this bottom one kind of highlights the time is now. The interest rates from USDA are currently at record lows. This is a really good time to finance through them for a project of this magnitude. Does anybody have any questions about the project? Field questions?
Is there any is there any stormwater piping in this area separate from the sewer?
There is, well, there are some stormwater systems, not through the entire area, but it's already separated. I don't know if you're alluding to it maybe being combined. But the primary, or most of it is really down on West Main Street and Main Street. There's the storm drain that the state owns as part of the state routes. And then there's some minor drainage infrastructure back in the neighborhoods.
And that ultimately is piped to the Ammonoosuc River.
Yes, yeah. All the storm drain back in the neighborhoods goes either into, I forget the name of the brook. There's a brook back there that feeds into the Ammonoosuc, and then, or it feeds into the state drainage system, which ultimately discharges to the Ammonoosuc as well. Any questions?
Chad, could you pick up the question okay, or should they use the mic?
Mics are always better because I get it cleaner, but with the ones we have, they are going to pick them up.
Thank you very much.
If you recall, these hearings have to be open for 30 minutes. So I'm going to start with the next hearing, but that doesn't mean this is closed. If a question comes up, please interrupt me. Don't interrupt the presenter of the next one, but you'll have time to get to this one. So I'll start with the next hearing, which is at 5:14. It's article number 3. It's the Partridge Lake Phosphate Reduction Study Design. Shall the town of Littleton vote to raise and appropriate the sum not to exceed $85,000 to hire a certified lake management / engineering firm to study conditions and provide design solutions to reduce external and internal phosphate loading in Partridge Lake to prevent future Cyanobacteria algae blooms in the lake, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $85,000 of bonds or notes in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act RSA 31:1 X cubed, as amended, with the amounts of such bonds or notes to be reduced by any grant funding received for the project, to authorize the selectmen to pay for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, and to authorize the selectmen to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. It is anticipated that there will be $75,000 in principal loan forgiveness under the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The remaining $10,000 will be offset by a donation from the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association Water Quality Fund. Fiscal impact, none. The tax impact associated with this will be nothing per $1,000 valuation. The principal loan amount of $75,000 will be forgiven for the terms of New Hampshire CWSRF, which is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Any and all interest incurred prior to loan forgiveness and administrative costs should be paid via monies held in the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association Water Quality Fund. As I said, estimated tax impact 0. A 3/5 ballot vote is required. This is recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0. It is recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0. And we have some reps from the Partridge Lake Association here if you have any questions. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to the third bond. And I now have 5:17 p.m. This is the wastewater treatment plant asset management study. It's Article 4 on the town ballot. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $49,000 excuse me, for the purpose of an asset management study and preliminary engineering of the wastewater treatment plant and any other costs related thereto, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $49,000 of bonds or notes in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33:1, as amended, with the amount of such bonds or notes to be reduced by any grant funding received for the project, to authorize the selectmen to pay for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes to, and to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, and to authorize the selectmen to take or any other action or pass any other vote relative thereto. It would be based on refund awards of at least $30,000 of the amount of the request. The remaining $19,000 will come from the undesignated sewer fund balance to pay off the bond prior to the first payment. No bond payment until 2019. No tax impact. 3/5 ballot vote is recommended. This was recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0. It was also recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 7-0. Do I have any questions on this bond? There are none. You don't have any questions?
Oh, he has just a couple of information points.
So you're asking for it.
If you want to throw that my way, we're gonna.
All right, so just to highlight goal of the article that was just read, it's a wastewater asset management plan for the wastewater treatment facility. What goes into the asset management plan is basically an evaluation of all the systems, components, and infrastructure at the wastewater treatment plant, evaluating their condition and assigning a priority to them, basically trying to outline a funding path and a maintenance path for how to best sustain what's there, and also to shake out any kind of recommended improvements and necessary funding that may be required to pay for those improvements. So this is a program that's funded through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. As was already discussed, What's recommended is the $49,000, of which $30,000 will be repaid in principal forgiveness by the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. In conjunction with this, we've also applied for a preliminary engineering search grant through Rural Development, which is a $30,000 grant, which would go in conjunction with this asset management plan. We would work to offer a preliminary engineering report evaluating the wastewater treatment plant and overall, in terms of actual physical processes, biological processes, and just overall improvements that could be made. So the wastewater plant is reaching the point where a life cycle analysis needs to be performed, and this will be lumped into the preliminary engineering report. So asset management plan for $49,000, $30,000 of which will be forgiven, and a $30,000 grant which will work in conjunction with the asset management plan to produce a preliminary engineering report. Any other questions or any questions about that?
Thank you, Stan.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, all three hearings are still running. We have 10 more minutes on the first one. But I'm going to go ahead and start with the draft warrant. For informational purposes, the first session of the annual meeting, which is commonly referred to as the deliberative session, is February 5th at 6 p.m. right here in the cafeteria. The second session, which is called the ballot voting, is March 12th. It's between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. at the Littleton Public Works Garage. The first article on the warrant is the election of officers. To choose necessary officers, including one town clerk, a 3-year term selectman, a 3-year term treasurer, a 3-year term trustee of the trust funds, 3 3-year term library trustees, and one 3-year term library trustee, and one 1-year term park commissioner, one park commissioner for a 3-year term, I'm sorry. Those will also appear on the ballot. The Article 2, which is our first bond article, but I'm required to read it again, is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,322,300 for the purpose of Sub-Area 2 repair and replacement of the sewer lines within the existing wastewater collection system and any other costs related thereto, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $6,322,300 of bonds or notes in compliance with Mutual Finance Act RSA 33:1 as amended, with the amount of such bonds or notes to be reduced by any grant funding received for the project, to authorize the selectmen to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project. To authorize the selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon, in the maturity and other terms thereof. And to authorize the selectmen to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. If the town does not receive grant awards of at least 45% of the amount of the appropriation, it will not undertake the project until they receive the 45%. Bond payments are anticipated to come from sewer users. Estimated tax impact 0. 3/5 ballot vote required. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0. Recommended by the budget committee 7-0. That is open for 7 more minutes. Are there any comments on that bond? If not, I'm going to continue with the next one. which is the Partridge Lake bond, which I have to reread. Shall the town of Littleton vote to raise and appropriate the sum not to exceed $85,000 to hire a certified lake management engineering firm to study conditions and provide design solutions to reduce external and internal phosphate loading in Partridge Lake to prevent future cyanobacteria algae blooms in the lake. I have to read this a few more times, I might get it. And to authorize the issuance of not more than $85,000 of bonds or notes in compliance with the Mutual Finance Act RSA 33:1 as amended, with the amount of such bonds or notes to be reduced by any grant funding received for the project, to authorize the selectmen to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project. To authorize the selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, excuse me, and deliver said bonds and notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, and to authorize the selectmen to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. It is anticipated there will be $75,000 in principal loan forgiveness under the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The remaining $10,000 will be offset by a donation from the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association Water Quality Fund. Fiscal impact none. Tax impact associated with this will be 0 per thousand. The principal loan amount of $75,000 will be forgiven for the terms of the New Hampshire CWSRF agreement. Any and all interest accrued prior to loan forgiveness and administrative costs should be paid via monies held in the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association Water Quality Fund. Estimated tax impact 0 per thousand. 3/5 ballot vote required. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 8-0. Which takes us to Article 4, which is the last of the bonds. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $49,000 for the purpose of asset management, study, and preliminary engineering of the wastewater treatment plant, and any other costs related thereto, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $49,000 of bonds or notes in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act RSA 33:1 as amended, with the amount of such bonds or notes to be reduced by any grant funding received for the project, to authorize the selectmen to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, and or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, and to authorize the selectmen to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. It would be based on refund awards of at least $30,000 of the amount of the request. The remaining $19,000 will come from undesignated sewer fund balance to pay off the bond prior to the first payment. No bond payment due until 2019. No tax impact. 3/5 ballot vote required. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Okay, moving right along. We are up to the operating budget, which I will read.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Excuse me.
Can I make a comment on the bond?
Which bond?
Do we still have time on that?
Can't hear it.
Do we still have time on the bond?
Which bond?
The sewer stormwater roadway and project for sub-area 2.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Ralph Hodgman, a taxpayer. Sir, you are saying that this bond is going to cost the taxpayers a 20% increase in their sewer usage. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, 19.1, I think. Yep.
19.1% increase in their sewer usage. I think it, just as a comment, I think it would be important to put that into this bond article so that the taxpayers see that there's going to be a 19.1% sewer increase because of it. I just feel it's important to be put on that article.
I would agree with you. However, the wording of these articles is dictated by the state.
Okay, so will that be mentioned at the deliberative session? I know it can't be at the voting, but somehow the voters should know that this warrant article is going to cost them that kind of money.
It can be mentioned to make sure that it is. Perhaps you can get up and make the same remark.
Okay. The other question is, that's for all residents, that's for all taxpayers, not just sub-area 2.
Yes.
All taxpayers' rates are going to go up.
All sewer users.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've got 5:31, which means I get to officially close the first of the bond hearings, which was the sewer, stormwater, roadway, and street project, some area 2. Do I need a motion to do that, Seal? Is there a motion to close that hearing? There's a motion. There's a second from George. Is there further discussion? All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Thank you. We've got another 12 minutes or so to go on the second one. So I'm going to go ahead and read the Article 5, which is the operating budget. I believe Karen will make a presentation on that after I'm done reading the article itself. So the town of Littleton raised and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set therein, totaling $8,863,210. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $8,740,679, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Littleton or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The estimated tax impact is 7.133 per thousand. This was recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0. It is recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 7-0. Karen, you're up. I'm going to interrupt you, Karen, in 10 minutes or so to close the second hearing. Other than that, have that.
Good evening. This budget presented a few challenges because the default budget rules changed in July. We were notified in September of all the different changes and having to go back and forth to try to figure out exactly what we could include in the default and what we could not include. Some of the items were kind of interesting because in previous budgets, I was able to include increases that happened through a contract. So if we had a contract with our sewer operators, the company that does our sewer operations and handles the testing and equipment down there, and there's a 5-year contract with a COLA increase or 2% or 3% increase every year built into it, unless I described that or someone at the deliberative session and the town meetings described that increase and it was known to the voters, it could not be included in 2019's default budget. In the past, it always had been. It was part of a 5-year contract and always was able to put that in. The other things that have changed is some of the employee changes that have happened throughout the budget, and as we're going through, you're going to see some of them. Because they're not a requirement by law, their wages either stayed the same in the budget, even though they may have adjusted throughout the budget in the proposed. And as I said, you're going to see some of this that's happening throughout. I can include workers' comp and unemployment increases in the cost of those items in the default budget, but I cannot include the increase in property liability insurance, because by law, you have to have workers' comp, you have to have unemployment, but by law, you do not have to have property liability coverage. The town does not have to. So I can only use the number that was in the previous budget. So it did present some challenges. It does not take away the authority of the town manager to hire individuals. What happens is if there is a new position that's put into place, the default budget will have a $0 amount for that position, but any savings seen throughout the position or throughout the default budget can be used if the default budget is voted in to cover those expenses. We have to come up with those numbers from other areas of the budget. So it does not take away that authority. So I just wanted to briefly talk with you about that. The other things that have been handed out to you or out back, we have a quick summary of the default budget, what was added in, what was taken out, kind of a quick review so you can see what the difference is on one sheet of paper. Additionally, there's a couple other sheets behind that that are a very quick summary of the difference between the default and the proposed budget. It's a very simple 4-page document. If somebody was in a hurry to look at everything, you would have that information there. A couple comments about budget factors. We did see a small reduction in the New Hampshire retirement system calculations. Next year, there'll be a little bit more reduction in that. The workers' compensation, we did see a 3.5% increase. Unemployment insurance, we did see a slight reduction in that. Property liability, there was a 3% increase. Health insurance, a 2.9% increase in our health insurance, which is phenomenal compared to some of the outside companies that I've heard are getting huge increases. We're working very hard with wellness programs to try to encourage our employees to look for savings, to look for healthy things to do. Propane prices in 2018, they were $1.30 per gallon. The town got them for $1.55 per gallon this year. Oil prices, last year they were $1.85 per gallon. This year it's $2.52 per gallon. The electric prices, we all know in 2019, there's an expected increase of 11% in cost. So those are just a couple brief items I wanted to go into. So your basic proposed and default budget booklet is here. It's 43 pages long. It includes both the transfer station, the parking meter fund, Parks and Rec, all of those individual departments, and the breakdown. And there is a summary sheet. We tried to have them done in color so you can see and read it a little clearer. The first page, which is actually number page 2 of 43, shows you that the approved budget was $8,628,078 for the operating expenditures. The default budget, which is on your right this year, shows a budget of $8,740,679. The difference between the default and 2018 approved is $112,601. The proposed budget is $8,863,210. The difference between 2018's approved budget and 2019 proposed is $235,132. It's a 2.73% increase. The difference between the default and the proposed is $122,531. So there's a difference of 1.38%. Continuing on, we do have revenues in here, and we tried to look at every revenue that we could possibly look at and see where we might be able to increase or decrease and adjust in order to try to keep the budget as tight as possible. And we do this every year. We're trying to even tighten it up to the point where we have very little fund balance, that leftover money that would fall to the town's fund balance. The next page I'm looking at is page 5, Executive Offices. And you have on your right-hand side the default budget. The items in here that are going to be adjusted are some of the salaries in this budget. We're moving people around. We went through a restructuring of the town administrative office, looking at what everyone does, looking at where we could try to save a little bit of money. We also have in this budget, last year we had the health officer in as 9 months, and now that health officer is in for 12 months this year. So in the default, the amount of the default for executive is $292,430. In the proposed, we have a 3% increase for the non-union employees for 9 months. We also have a restructure of the welfare director and executive secretary. We also have some changes in health insurance. We have reduced retirement because of some staff changes, going to a lower hour per week, which took away that one benefit, and that was an agreement with the employee. So it helped save some costs there. We do have an increase in the professional services and grant management as we go after more and more grants to try to increase the level of what we're doing in the town and provide the taxpayers with at least a benefit of getting some reduced projects, because all our projects are costing more and more every year. We have to either come up with grant money or pay someone to help put together everything we need for those grants. It is a huge undertaking. So the 2019 proposed executive budget is $286,240. And this includes our admin assistant or executive assistant for the town manager, going from 20 hours a week to 32 hours a week. Under elections, registrations, and vitals, page 6 and 7. In the proposed, we have a few minor changes. Actually, it's just items that were changed as of last year's budget that had to be carried over. Excuse me.
Excuse me, Karen. The second hearing, which is the Partridge Lake hearing, is now run its 30 minutes. Are there any last-minute questions? If not, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the default budget for the town clerk's office is $170,981. The proposed budget includes a 3% increase in the non-union staff. It includes a change in staff. We have hired a new deputy town clerk assistant that has come from a town clerk background, so there was limited training that needed to be done with this individual when someone else had retired. Having someone with experience, we had to pay a little bit more money to this individual. We do have some adjustments. We've reduced the mileage reimbursement because that person doesn't have to go to travel so much to get the training. We have a change in health insurance plans. We have a couple added items under data processing. We have a new credit card processing proxy that we're hoping to get if the proposed budget is passed. We also would like to do a dog license lookup software so that when the police department are out picking up a dog that's stray, they can look up the tags without having to wait till the town clerk's office is open. We also want to buy 2 signature pads so that at the counter we are able to process credit cards, debit cards, without having to go through a computer process to do that, making it a little bit easier. We have a slight increase in election supplies of $50. Going to page 7, there is a reduction in postage, and that basically is because there's less elections this year. There's a reduction in poll watchers because there's less elections this year. So the amount of the town clerk budget proposed is $186,919. Going on to the tax collector. In this budget in the past, we've never included the deputy, even though we had a deputy, and the deputy fills in for the town clerks or help, the tax collector. Yeah, that's fine. Gives my voice a break.
Okay, 30 minutes on the Article 4 wastewater treatment plant assessment study is now expired. Are there any last-minute questions on that? If not, do I have a motion to close the hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. In the past, we've never included the wages for this individual, even though they were working in another department most of the time, and we've decided to include that into this budget. So in the default, there's very few changes. The difference is $88 from last year's approved, and that's adjusted based on increases from the past and different adjustments throughout within health insurance and so on. So the default is $76,451. In the proposed, we have added that 4-hour-week average person that is working as the deputy. We've reduced the data processing. This is a point where if we could have included it in the default budget, we would have. But because of the rules with the default budget, that reduction is not included in there. So the proposed is $82,274. Under financial administration, there's been a lot of changes. Under the proposed, under the default, the only item that was a big change was adding in the 75 GASB requirement under the professional services. That's required every 2 years by the auditors, and it is a law that has to do with the governmental accounting. So that was included in the default budget. So the default budget was $177,864. In the proposed budget, my position has been restructured. I have chosen to break off some of my responsibilities and work a few less hours, I hope, which also saves the town a little bit of money in this section of the budget. We've also moved who was my accounting assistant into personnel. She is handling payroll, human resources, benefits administration, which takes a huge amount of responsibilities off me, and it puts it all into the personnel administration budget, and you'll see that later on. We have moved the person that was part-time in the executive budget as an administrative assistant. She now works in the finance department. She works 28 hours a week for finance and 4 hours for tax collecting. And she is now the accounts payable, accounts receivable clerk. And she helps with some filing and so on. So you see the adjustments within this budget. All of the employees working in the finance and personnel administration budget are working 32 hours a week. So that saves a little bit, and if you look down on line 9 called retirement, you're gonna see that no one is eligible for the retirement benefit any further. So that saves a little bit more in this budget. We do have some reduction in wages, changes in personnel that relate to health insurance, relate to Social Security, Medicare, and those other items that are wage related. We have a reduction in data processing, a little bit of savings there. And then, of course, we've included that update for GASB 75. So the proposed budget for financial administration is $159,646. In assessing, we have a little bit of changes here. And under the default budget, the budget is exactly the same. Under the old rules, the default budget would have included the increase for the assessing service that was in their contract. And they had a 5-year contract with us. But because of the new rules with the default, we cannot do that. We have included it in the proposed. We also have a little reduction in the BMSI software support. Again, the data processing on this. So the proposed budget is $105,092. Under legal, in the default budget's exactly the same as last year. The proposed budget has a reduction in the legal expenses of $15,000. So the legal expenses is $75,000 in the proposed budget. So it makes the proposed budget for legal expenditures $92,600. Under personnel administration, this is page 11. You'll see the adjustments. Under the default budget, because of the laws related to workers' compensation, we're able to increase that number in the default. So the default budget for personnel administration is $129,141. In the proposed budget, we have an increase in the personnel administration salary. Because of the restructuring of the department, we've increased those hours that used to be about 20 hours per week to 32 hours per week, and have adjusted the benefits that relate to this person. We also have in here that the retirement is no longer eligible. A portion of my wages had retirement on it in the 2018 approved budget, and this is being removed in the proposed budget. We have a reduction in the unemployment taxes, an increase in workers' comp. We also have a slight increase in postage, trying to keep up with all of the applications that we seem to be getting with different positions. There was one position we had over 40 applications. In the employee relations, we have increased the cost of training from $500 to $1,500. With someone new taking over that position, there needs to be some additional training. And it's hard to give it all, and it's hard to know exactly what laws are changing all the time, so we need to keep up with that. And we also try to have employee meetings on at least once a year basis or more for some individual group training, which does cost a little bit of money to bring somebody in. So the proposed budget for personnel administration is $149,401. Planning and zoning, under the default budget, the one item that, of course, is in here a little differently is 2018. We had the zoning officer that was budgeted only for 9 months, now in here for one full year. So there's a small increase in the default compared to 2018 approved. The default number is $90,356. The 2019 proposed shows a slight increase in the planning and zoning administrator. This person is now our deputy health officer because we are required to have a deputy for the health officer. We have reduced the planning and zoning legal by $5,000. So this proposed budget is down. It's down to $87,514. General government buildings. So under this budget, by law, in the default, we had to account for the Social Security and Medicare. And apparently it was not calculated my era last year correctly. It's in here correctly now. And in the default budget for this is $78,906. It's a difference of $107 from the 2018 approved. In the 2019 proposed, again, we have those couple of little adjustments. We've added in a new software program. It's called Basecamp, and it's to monitor projects and work assignments that are given to different individuals to see how they're doing, see what they're doing. It's a way of the town manager keeping track of what's happening on different things going on in the town with different departments without having to do emails back and forth and have a meeting constantly with the different departments. So it's a very useful tool in knowing what's happening with different departments and different employees that you've assigned work to. The proposed budget is $80,280. Under cemeteries, there is no change to the default budget. In the proposed, we have a 1.83% increase. They usually increase in their proposed $1,500 every year. So if the proposed budget is approved, they will get $83,500 from this budget. The town insurance. The property liability insurance, as I said, we could not change in the default budget. So the default budget's exactly the same as 2018 approved. But in the 2019 proposed, we do have a reduction. We've been able to come up with some little fine savings that have helped out a little bit. So the default budget for town insurance, which includes deductibles, is $101,000, the default budget's $110,894. The proposed budget is $101,500. So there is a savings there, almost $10,000. Advertising Association. The Advertising and Association budget includes public notices, town report publication, media services, and dues. And those dues include to the New Hampshire Municipal Association, the North Country Council, the Profile Cable Consortium, and other memberships. The default budget is exactly the same as last year, $24,652. The proposed budget includes an increase of $500 for notices and publications. We seem to be making sure that people are informed of different meetings going on and things happening. The town report, we have a savings of $1,000. That is in the proposed is $2,000 this year. We believe that and have seen more people access the web in order to read the town report, which saves money to the town in the end. Media services, we have tried to get more coverage of town meetings, budget meetings, and they seem to continue to grow. the activities do. So we went from $6,100 for that service to $15,000 for that service. We also have an increase in dues. Some of those dues are based on what they were in 2018. They continue to increase. We sometimes do not know what they're going to be until we're halfway through the year and get the bill on them. So we looked at last year and have increased those certain lines that pertain to those dues. We also have an added $600 in here for the chamber membership. As an individual, I'm a member individually with the chamber, but the town is not a member of the chamber. And the town does receive benefits from being part of the chamber because it does encourage some economical growth for the town. So the proposed budget for advertising and regional association is $33,345. Under other general government, the default budget is exactly the same as it was last year. This includes the community center subsidy. It also includes Mount Washington Regional Airport. So the default is $41,000. Through the budget process, it was suggested and recommended that the selectmen put the Mount Washington Airport out on a warrant article. So the selectmen chose to move in the proposed budget the fee that is paid to Mount Washington Regional Airport as a warrant article. So this proposed budget for other general government is now $35,000. I'll go on to a larger department now that might take a little bit longer. I hope everybody's patient. And this is part of the new rules related to the proposed and the default budget is going into greater detail. So you're fully aware, and those people watching are fully aware of what's in the budget. So under police department, the default budget, and I'm going to go to page 17 of 43, is $1,784,392. The proposed budget is $1,758,490. So there's a little bit of difference there. And correct me if I'm reading something wrong because I took my glasses off. So under the default, there is some slight changes in the default from 2018 approved because you had a warrant article that put a full-time officer in the department, which included benefits. So there is going to be a difference there. The default has a little bit of adjustment in the health insurance because of that. They also have a little bit of an adjustment in the uniforms because if the uniforms are part of that position under the CBA, we are allowed to add that to the default budget. We also have the same number for data processing as we had in 2018 approved because we could not change the number because of the default budget. And I'll go back to the proposed so we can go back over that a little bit. And you continue on to the very tail end and you'll see again that number. I want to make sure I read it right. $1,784,392. So under the proposed, in the police department budget, we have a 3% non-union increase, and this includes the full-time individuals, the part-time individuals, the part-time officer. These are all employees that are not under the CBA. The CBA is the union contract. So none of the union employees in the default or the proposed budget received increases. Under the proposed, we have a little reduction in travel reimbursement. There's an admin car that can be used by different staff throughout the different departments to be able to go to training, which saves the town a little bit of travel money, that travel reimbursement money, because the IRS now has a rate of 58 cents per mile. This vehicle is something safe enough that the employees can drive and can use. They have to go through a process to use this vehicle, but it does save a little bit of money in the travel reimbursement lines. We have an additional change in the health insurance plan. We have an adjustment in the retirement. Of course, the other wage-related benefits also have adjustments down through them. In the training lines, there is an increase to the prosecutor training. There's an increase to the DARE training. We already talked about uniforms. Under telephone and communications, there's an increase to the 911 alert system. There's also a removal of e-alerts. Under data processing, we have a contractual agreement of an increase, and this would have in the past been part of the default. We have an expected increase in electrical of 11%. We have an increase in water, and that's kind of going back and looking at history. We have an increase in dues, not a large one, but there is an increase there. We have an increase, or excuse me, a reduction in general supplies for evidence preservation. On page 17, the changes in the proposed, we have removed, just for 2019's proposed budget, the cruiser, the purchase of a new cruiser. The town had an opportunity to pick up 2 cruises last year. We were planning on doing a lease for them. Given the new default budget requirements, we could not include a lease payment in the 2019 default budget. So it was decided throughout the budget process, bottom line, that we would be able to pay for the additional amount for that second cruiser. And if you think about it, we actually saved some money because we have in our budget $45,750 for one cruiser. We got 2 cruisers for $71,000. Under equipment purchase field, we've added in for a portable AED. We also have added in for media service storage. That's to increase the hard drive at the police department. The additional cost in tasers, because they're costing more money now. And then we want to start a camera program. It's proposed to have a 1 to 4 year program and to replace the cameras that we have with the police department. They, after a while, get outdated, and some of them break, no longer usable, so we're in the process of hopefully changing that up. Under the updated radios that we were going to do last year, there's a decision not to do the radios because the radios that were proposed weren't exactly what we needed, and the radios that we actually need are going to be very costly, so we're hoping to go out and try to get a grant for those. So going down to the end, the proposed budget for the police department is $1,758,490. Under dispatch and ambulance, there is no changes. That's on page 18. They're exactly the same as what they were last year. Fire department. Looking at the default first, and I'm going to go to the last page of the default for the fire department, which is page 23. The default is $1,070,505. That is less than the proposed. Some of that is made up of different things throughout the budget. One decision was to remove the part-time position that we had in here for Sunday hours. We're now covering Sunday as long as we have full staff, full-time staff, covering Sundays with full-time staff. The way the rotation works, it works out so that the full-time staff can take on Sundays, and both of them, there's 2 individuals on. So the plan for this last year was if we weren't able to work that out, that we were going to have a call company or part-time company person come in and work. So that was $21,821 that was removed from the default budget. That was the biggest item, and that took up most of the change in the default budget. In the proposed budget, you go back to page 19, there's a 3% increase for non-union employees. There's a slight reduction in the part-time positions call company, plus, of course, that removal of the person working Sundays. We have some changes in overtime. There's an increase here based on what we've seen in overtime. We have a little bit of change in the health insurance based on policies. We have an increase in cost in disability insurance, and this is basically because of the life insurance we have on call company firefighters. A couple years ago, we had a warrant article that allowed us to put disability insurance for our call company, and that cost has increased by $1,500. Of course, there's reductions and increases throughout the Social Security, Medicare, and retirement. There's a reduction in training expense because of some less need for recertification for different individuals. There is uniform expenses, which there is an increased cost because we want to try to replace and replenish some of our old uniforms for the part-time firefighters. We have in telephone communications an increase. We have an emergency reporting contract that has an increase. This would have also been done in the default had the default rules not changed. We've added IMC dispatch service for $450 as well to the telephone communications. Under electricity, of course, we have that 11% increase. We have a slight increase in heating fuel. We have an increase in cost in water. And under building maintenance, there is an increase here. It's about $100 for pest control. Under building repair, we have an $8,810 addition. We need to replace the front and back door. It's a one-time expenditure until the next time it falls apart, but we're hoping this will create some efficiency and we'll fix the rotten area that's around the door. Dues, there is an increase in cost in dues, very slight increase. An increase in janitorial cost, and this is for our dumpster. The dumpster, again, is a contract, and we could not increase this in our default. Under general supplies firefighting, you'll see some large increases here. If you look through your budget report, you're going to find all the detail related to structural boots, helmets, turnout gear, turnout coats, gloves, hoods. All of those items have increased in cost, and some of our items that we have are very old, and we need to get better protection for the people going in and fighting fires. Equipment maintenance, it's on page 23. We have an increase in cost there, and if you look through the budget on page 23, you're going to see the individual things that have increased. Some things that we have to start testing annually. or things that are required to be tested that weren't last year. Some things are on a 2-year cycle. We've increased vehicle repairs. That, in the proposed budget, is $40,689. Had to look with my other set of eyes. And the default is $19,225. One reason why we increased this is the older that the fire department vehicles get, the more they're costing. And there's a lot of items on those vehicles that can go wrong. In the last few years, we've been spending about $40,000 a year or more. So we need to keep up with those repairs. Under Public Works Administration, the default budget and the proposed budget are very close. There's a slight adjustment related to any wage-related items that are in here or retirement that's in here in the default. The default is $85,385. The proposed is $100,044. Now, there is some adjustments with what is coming from the sewer funds to help pay for this individual. This individual has actually been hired by the town, and this budget is only for 11 months of the year because this individual hasn't started working full-time yet. This individual will be full-time. I'm hoping around February 1st or 15th, somewhere in that range. And there is some plans and insurances that change. So there is some adjustments here. And next year's budget, I'm anticipating at least the wages will be $94,000 a year. On to Public Works Department. This is, again, another large department. I'm sorry I have to go into so much detail, but at least people will know. So again, to the last page of this, which is 28, their default is $1,164,412. Their proposed is $1,185,049. And if you remember last year's warrant article, we had an individual that was hired in the highway department for a full-time position. The warrant article was only for 4 months. So in the default budget, we've included this person in here. So if you look through, you're going to see in the default the individual wages that we put in for the truck driver of $29,952. We also have, of course, some changes in health insurance, life insurance, disability, Social Security, Medicare, retirement for covering this individual. Under the default, we also are able to adjust the uniforms because this individual would be in a CBA or union position. Going on to page 27, in the default there is no changes down through that, or 28. So going back to the proposed, we have some adjustments in this budget. Through the process of looking at the highway department and thinking about the structure of it, we have an individual that has done a lot of the administration work and will continue to do a lot of administration work at the highway department. And we have placed him in a position called Public Works Manager. This is an individual that's worked at least 17 or 18 years, probably even longer than that for the town. We have removed in the proposed budget the truck driver because this individual would be that added person in the highway department. Now in the default budget, this individual is not in, the wages for this individual is not in here. It doesn't mean that the town manager can't have this individual working as the Public Works Manager. He just has to, the money has to be found within the budget to cover this individual. Temporary positions, we do have an increase of 3%. And by the way, none of the union employees have a wage increase in this, in either of the proposed or the default. Health insurance, there is some changes within this. Again, life insurance, disability, Social Security, Medicare, and retirement all adjust with wages. Under training, we have $1,000 added to try to train new employees and add in some training that's really needed in that department. We have, I know recently we had somebody for confined space, and when an individual has to go into a manhole, that is a confined space. You need to have training to go in there. Uniforms, again, there's a slight increase in this because of some cost increases for safety glasses, gloves, suspenders. On page 27, we have electric increase of 11%. Under pellets, there was a recommendation to reduce this to $5,000. It's about a $3,000 savings. General supplies for the shop and garage. Most of that is under the welding section. There are some cost increases there. Under office supplies, there is a new copier. Actually, there is a copier that we have a maintenance agreement on. Because of the default budget changes, we could not include that increase in the default budget. It was $300 last year. It's now $750. So under gas and oil, we've took a good look at it, looked over the last couple of years, and there has been a reduction of $5,000 in the proposed. Under signs and posts, we have a $1,000 increase. We do need to start replacing some of the older signs and getting some new signs in places that may not have them. Under rentals and leases, we've reduced that by $1,000. Under machinery and equipment, we have increased that by $1,500 to upgrade, update, and replace some of the small tools and equipment at the highway department. So the proposed budget for the highway public works garage is $1,185,049. Going on to page 29, bridges and sidewalks. We have added to that $2,000 in the proposed. The default is exactly the same as last year. We need to seal some of our sidewalks. We need to seal some of our bridges. We have to try to get some control of some weeds that are growing up through the different little spaces here and there. Under street lighting, we have 11% increase budgeted in the proposed budget, and the default budget is exactly the same as last year. We also have an increase in the rentals and leases of the hydrants. We have to pay water and light for the hydrants. And I looked back at the current billing and calculated it out, and there is an increase there. So the total proposed budget in this department is $68,180. Animal control is exactly the same as last year. There's no difference. Under welfare, the default budget's exactly the same as last year. The welfare director has looked it over and has made some reductions in the proposed budget. The proposed budget is $52,095. The default budget is $65,345. And the reductions are taking in the electric assistance, the rental assistance, and the food assistance. Excuse me, yes, the food assistance. Sorry, the funeral assistance. On to page 31, patriotic purposes. That is exactly the same as last year. The proposed budget is $2,400. Under Conservation Commission, the default is exactly the same as last year. The proposed has a $599 increase, and that is to add some new brochures to what they give out. And their new proposed budget is $3,205. Now, the transfer station is on its own warrant article, so I'm not going to go through that until we get to that warrant article. So if we can move to page 34. We have libraries. There's some small changes to the library. We have a default budget of $319,252, and that has to do with some changes, of course, with a little bit of wages and benefits that relate to that. Under the proposed, we have a proposed budget of $318,593. We have a reduction in the vacation sick accrual of $400. We do have a 3% wage increase to the non-union. We have an increase to the electric and water of $500. We've added in for miscellaneous of $10 and a funds transfer fee of $10. Their actual amount for the appropriation on the tax rate in the proposed is $282,093. The default is $282,752. Last year's was $279,251. Parks and Recreation. They are part of the operating budget. They're considered a revolving fund. So anything that is a revolving fund is part of the operating budget. It does not have to have its own special warrant article. This one's got quite a few different things going on in it. So I'm going to go to the end page, page 37 for this. The default is $391,758. It's a difference of $2,126 from 2018's approved. Some of those differences are made up with a little bit of difference in the staffing, slight difference in workers' compensation. There is also, I don't believe there's any other differences other than wage-related items. There is a difference in revenues. The revenues for the default budget for the Parks and Rec is less than last year. We have a Parks and Rec director that's taken a long look at all the different revenues. The revenues for 2019, as far as the default budget goes, is $128,250. So the amount of the tax appropriation that, if the default passes, is $263,508. Now we'll move to the proposed. The proposed on page 37 for the Parks Department is $445,833. That's a difference of $56,201. And we have quite a few things happening in this department, so I will go over those. We have some staff changes. We have an individual that's been working temporary, seasonal in the Parks Department, both summer and winter as we have needed. And there is, in the proposed budget, moving this person from part-time to full-time. That adds $29,775 to the permanent positions. We've also included a 3% non-union increase. Under temporary seasonal positions, these positions are individuals that work at day camp, recreation programmer, after-school program, pool staff, and of course we have our winter and summer laborers in here, and our part-time person that's working right now throughout the year. So we have some adjustments. If you look at your budget, you can see under day camp we have an increase from $45,000 to $50,000. We have a reduction in the recreational programmer from $11,000 in the default to $6,000 for summer only. The after-school program is exactly the same. The pool staff has a slight increase to increase staffing at the pool. That goes from $11,174 to $14,000. We are looking to move the part-time position, seasonal position, to a permanent position. We also have left $1 in here for ice skating rink and added grounds work for seasonal, depending on what we need during the winter months. So the temporary seasonal positions in the proposed budget is $84,402. In the default, it's $88,715. Then, of course, we have added for overtime, $1,000 for the added responsibilities. The ice rink is not an 8 to 5 or 7 to 3 type job. That has to take a lot of time to continue working on to get the ice right. Overtime, I've already said that. Health insurance, we're adding in for a person being on 9 months of the year. We have a change in life insurance, disability insurance, Social Security, Medicare, and retirement based on that added person full-time. We also have in the training, we have some additional cost of $500 for training for Red Cross, lifeguard, and other employee training. In the telephone, we are looking to change in service, which is actually a savings in the proposed budget. We've added to internet, upgrading our website and doing a new website, which does increase the cost. Under pool maintenance, we have $2,500 for continuing painting of the pool. This needs to be done to continue keeping it sealed to try to avoid some of the leakage. Parks operating supplies, paper, office supplies, cleanup, so on. We've never really had any number in here for bathroom supplies or cleaning supplies for, say, the pool building or any of the buildings. So even trash bags, we've never really had a number in here for trash bags. So we've included in the proposed budget $1,800. Under pool operating supplies, chemicals, medical supplies, there's an increase of $1,000 here. Equipment maintenance, we've increased that by $500. Under mileage reimbursement, we've reduced this to $500 from $1,800 because there is use of the parks truck and there's also use of the amend vehicle at the police department. Under groundskeeping, we have a $2,000 increase, and that is because we do porta potty rental, which has never been added to the budget, that needs to be put in this budget, and trash removal. So when we have events, we have the money to take care of these items. We're not squeezing it out of anywhere we can throughout the budget. Vehicle maintenance and plowing, there's an increase of $500 here. Parks equipment purchase, there's $1,000 added to this. We do need a new push mower and a weed whacker. We're not asking for any large equipment, but this type of equipment is always needed and needs to be replaced. There's an increase in pool equipment purchase by $200. There's an added $500 for audit expense. As we get more and more funds for grants and so on, the Parks Department becomes a larger part of our audit. So again, the proposed budget for the parks is $445,833. You go back to page 35, you look at the revenues. We've added in a couple revenues. We've received some donations, so we've added in $1,000 for revenues. We've also planned on, in the future, to have the Parks Department possibly helping with taking care of the town office plowing. We've been paying an outside person for that, but in the future, we're looking for having the Parks Department to help with that. We have a highlighted item here, the SAU groundskeeping fee. We have $6,000 in there. I will note that we have not received it for 2 years, but hope to get it soon. And miscellaneous fund use balance, this is where the Parks and Rec commissioners are able to use their funds that they have set aside in their reserve account, revolving account, to purchase items. And we should always have a little bit of a budget for that. So the total income or revenues for 2019 proposed for the parks is $140,530. So the net appropriation on the tax rate is $305,303. It's $48,372 more than last year. But there is a lot of activity going on into this department. Debt schedule. We have under principal payments and bonds. The default in the proposed is exactly the same. Those items are contractual. We've added in here the sidewalk plow sander. The planned year, it was a 5-year lease, planned to be paid off in 2023. Foster Hill road improvements, the 5-year bond planned to be paid off in 2023. We have a couple items that I noted that are paid in full. And I'm not sure why I yellowed or highlighted the River District, but that's in there. The interest on long-term bonds and loans are also added in here, as you can see, and there's a couple items that are estimates because I haven't got the actual amortization schedule. So the proposed and the default is $1,158,360. It's $3,325 less than 2018's approved. Opera House has its own warrant article, so I'm going to set that one aside. Special detail outside is part of the revolving funds. This one has very few little changes in it. The default is $10,994. The proposed is exactly the same. The reductions come from the retirement, and then the workers' compensation has a 3.5% increase. Parking meters revenues, that also has its own warrant article. So I'm going to move that one again. Sewer users subtotal. There's changes throughout this budget. In the default, it's $860,932. This is called a revenue neutral budget because the property taxpayers do not pay for the sewer users. The sewer users are the only ones that get billed other than the septic haulers. We do have septic haulers that bring sewage to the wastewater treatment plant. So under permanent positions, this number is based on whatever's in the default, the calculations like the 10% or the 15% as you look through the budgets will come in and be added into this budget that comes to the portion that's the people are working for the sewer. We have a health insurance adjustment because of different plans that individuals are on. We have in the default disability insurance, Social Security, retirement, that all adjust, and the workers' comp adjusts. The one item, the professional services plant operation. In the past, I've always been able to include the increase because this is a contractual item in the default. But because of the new default, I cannot include the increase. So that is the same exact number as what it was in 2018. We have data processing, is the same exact number. Property liability, again, the same exact number. I cannot include an increase under the new default rules. And the items on page 43 that I'm able to add is debt service for sewer bonds. So we do have some added sewer bonds into the debt service, both principal and interest. We have 1/3 of the River District loan that was taken out quite a few years ago. We also have a sub-area 5 that eventually will start having principal payments, but we do have interest payments next year on. So the default is $860,932. In the proposed, if you look at the page 42, you're going to see permanent positions. This is adjusted throughout the budget based on individuals working under different wages, under different parts of what they're doing for the sewer. We've increased some of the areas' time, say my time, the town manager's time, may have changed throughout the budget. The public works director's time will have changed throughout the budget of what share comes from the sewer. We're finding that some of us are working as much, say the tax collector. Tax collector collects taxes for property taxes, but she also does the sewer haulers. She just does the same amount of work, even though the money's a lot more from the property taxes. She does the same amount of work to do the billing and receive the money for both sewer and for property taxes. So the permanent positions have increased. The health insurance, life insurance, disability, all of the wage-related items have increased down through here. We also have our workers' comp, which has already in the default, but we do have the 3% increase for the professional services at the plant operation, and that's estimated to be 3%. So that will be $447,233. We have a slight adjustment on property liability coverage because of the increase in that cost that is part of the proposed budget. We have under cleaning and monitoring, and I apologize for not highlighting it, there is a reduction of about $15,000 here. As we continue to repair the sewer lines, there's less and less that we need to repair and continue repairing, so we have got a $15,000 reduction. We've included a $500 increase because when you have grants related to a certain department and certain projects, it does cost more money to have those special audits, especially since the grant for the sewer is over $750,000. Anytime you have grants, a total of more than $750,000, you usually have what is called a special audit or a single audit. And then again, the debt service, both interest and principals is calculated in here. The proposed budget is $881,710. And 2018's approved budget was $844,482. So I'm done with the operating budget. If you want to just quickly go back to page 2, you can look at the bottom line and you see what the differences are between the default, the proposed, the difference between 2018 and 2019, default and proposed as well. The overall increase for the default is 1.31. The difference, the overall increase from 2018 for the operating budget is 2.73. Thank you. I'll stay up here.
Thank you, Karen. Article 6 is the transfer station special revenue funds to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $395,544 for the purpose of the transfer station operations with. Now, this is the corrected number on your warrant article form. It is correct, but I'm going to give you the number on this form. So it's actually $259,905 to come from the transfer station special revenue fund, with a balance of $135,639 to be raised by taxation. The special article is a special warrant article per RSA 32:35ID and RSA 32:7V. 5. Estimated tax impact, .167 per thousand, majority vote required. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 7-0.
Okay, to tie it out a little bit so you understand why there had to be a change, I had worked on that warrant article, and it was picked up by Brian Patno that there was a couple things that had to be fixed on it. So the written warrant articles that you have the incorrect amount for the revenue funds and for the tax impact, not the tax impact, but the amount coming from taxes. The tax impact is correct. And if you refer to page 32 of your budget, you're going to see the transfer station. That's on 2 pages. So I'm going to go to the default number first again. The default number is $386,942. That's $2,005 more than last year. The proposed budget is $395,544. It's a difference of $10,607 as far as the expenditures go. And I'll run through the default very quick because there's not many changes. Workers' comp is 1. And then we have, I guess that's the only one that, other than wages, that would be affected. Then on the proposed, we have a 3% increase for non-union employees. All union employees do not have the increase calculated in their budget. We have a part-time person working there 16 hours a week. That has not changed. We were looking at possibly changing that, but had made a decision during the budget process to keep the budget down, so having the person continuing 16 hours a week. We have an increase in training expense under proposed. We have an increase in workers' comp, which I just noticed does not quite match the same under the default number, so I have to take a look at that and see what happened. Under electricity, we have 11% increase. It's about $1,000 increase. Under property liability, we have an increase in that cost as well. We have postage. That went from $20 to $50. We also have equipment maintenance and new equipment. This we have increased $600 to continue buying lubricants. The increase has gone up slightly on those. Under recycling direct disposal, we have an increase in the cost of marketing our items, such as baling wire, fluorescent bulbs, Freon disposal, and propane tanks. All of those items have increased. Under recycling tire disposal, that has increased $200. We have tipping fees. That has increased by $2,000, sorry, $2,000. We have transportation, because we have to pay for transportation on the recycling items. That's an increase of another $2,000. So the proposed budget is $395,544. You have to look back at the revenues, because this is a special revenue fund, and what we take in for revenues affect what the appropriation is on the tax rate. So under the default, we have revenues of $259,905. We have that same number under the proposed. That's based on different things within the market, and Brian Patno does a great job on reviewing the market and trying to get us the best income we can get off our recyclables. So if you take the expenditures minus off that revenue, it shows you the amount that comes from taxation. Under the default budget, it's $127,037. Under the proposed budget, it is $135,639. So in the proposed budget, compared to 2018, the amount appropriation is $29,377 more than what it was in 2018. So that is the transfer station budget review.
Next is Article 7, the Opera House Special Revenue Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $96,374 for the purpose of the Opera House operations, with $45,602 to come from the Opera House Special Revenue Fund, and the balance of $50,772 to be raised by taxation. This special article is a special warrant article per RSA 32:3(5)(I), parentheses D, and RSA 32:7(5). The estimated tax impact is .062 cents per thousand. Recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. Was recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 7-0.
So again, back to your budget packet, page 39 of 43. So we'll first look at the default. The default is $76,665. 2018's approved was $84,422. And the reason why there is a difference there is a few one-time items, such as stained glass repair that we were trying to do to the windows, key fob and security for the building, and we're continuing on working on some of those items. The 2019 default, we had to add in workers' compensation. I overlooked adding this in when we started building the budget in 2018. Then we have property liability insurance. So those two items are the items that are added into the default that come up with some of this difference between the default and 2018. We also have to look at the revenues. In the revenue section, we've kept the revenues exactly the same as what they were last year. We took in, actually, so far, year to date, $37,414 was budgeted, was $35,003. So we have taken in a little more than what we expected. I think that's great. The amount that came from taxation last year was $59,419. The amount under the default will be $41,662. So we look at the proposed. If you look at the proposed, the total expenditures, $96,374. What is that made up of? One is we are bumping the receptionist to 16 hours a week. We have several part-time people that work at the Opera House. We have our Opera House manager, which is not, all of these people are non-union. We have maintenance management to try to work 5 hours a week on trying to take care of the little things that happen around there and try to keep the place painted and cleaned up as much as possible. And then we have janitors. Every time that we have an event there, if the place is not cleaned up to the required cleanliness that the manager wants, we have to have somebody in there cleaning. And it can get rather dusty. It can get dirty. It's not a building that doesn't have activity. It probably has more activity than what we could imagine going on down there. So the wages in the proposed budget is $44,212. Along with that, you have Social Security, Medicare. Then we have electric. We expect an 11% increase in that. We have water and sewer. So the more that the building is used, the more it does cost for septic and water usage. Under workers' comp, of course, we have that in here. We have our property liability increase. We have in building maintenance a reduction of about $10,000, and that's because of the one-time items. We have in general supplies a $1,000 increase. Office supplies, the more activity that we have, the more we need to send out items and copy, so on. Postage, there's a slight increase here. We try to do as much as we can by email, but it doesn't work for everything. Equipment purchase and repair, we have added in a printer copier lease. Now, in previous budgets, I would have been able to add this to the default, but because of the changes in the default budget laws, I could not. So it is in your proposed budget for $750. And now you look at the revenues. We have bumped up some of the revenues. We're pushing for more events, more activities, hoping to see more rentals as we get the offices renovated and out there so people could rent from us. We've had a lot of activity with donations, so we bumped up the donations in here. We've had some special purpose donations. Someone might have donated $500, but it's only can be used to, say, buy the Opera House stage curtains. So we bumped up that to $1,000. So the revenues in the proposed is $45,602. The total appropriation on the tax rate for the proposed budget is $50,772. That is $1,353 more than last year's 2018's appropriation.
Karen. Article 8, Parking Meter Special Revenue Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $54,818 for the purpose of the parking meter operations, with $54,818 to come from the Parking Meter Special Revenue Fund. This special article is a special warrant per article, RSA 32:3VID and RSA 32:7V. Tax impact is nothing. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 7-0.
So this is the last one from your budget packet that we need to review. It's page 41. So under the default, this is a revenue neutral budget, meaning what's brought in for net revenues, you basically, when you budget, you can't have any more than what you budget for expenditures showing up here. Anything over that you receive falls to the parking meter revenue fund, and that can be used for some different purposes. The parking meter expenditures under the default is $55,278. As you can see, the increases are workers' comp, and then of course there's an adjustment with the enhanced downtown parking lot principal loan and interest payment. That adjusts throughout the life of that loan, and that makes the revenues exactly the same, $55,278. Looking at the proposed, we have removed the mileage reimbursement that we were giving the individual that was doing the parking enforcement, because this person will have use of either the admin vehicle or the UTV to take care of going through the parking meter areas and doing the ticketing and collecting funds as needed. We do have a 3% increase for the employee working, non-union employee. It is one employee working part-time. We have some other wages and benefits that adjust down through. Again, the principal and interest has adjusted according to the loan. The proposed budget is actually lower than the default. It's $54,818. Last year's budget was $54,510. It's a $308 difference from the proposed to last year's budget. And that concludes the explanation about the budget.
Incidentally, I should add, as we go through these various articles, if you have comments or suggestions or anything that would cause the selectmen to relook at one of these items or to adjust it, amend it, whatever, this is what a hearing is for. It's not to argue the merits of it so much as to understand all of these and comment if you so choose. With that, I'm going to move along to Article 9, which is the dog license additional $1 fee. Shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 31:95C to restrict the additional $1 dog licensing fees imposed by the Select Board under RSA 466:39 to expenditures for the purpose of establishing and operating a dog park by the Littleton Parks and Recreation Department. Such revenues and expenditures shall be accounted for in a special revenue fund to be known as the Littleton Dog Park Fund, separate from the general fund. Any surplus in said fund shall not be deemed part of the general fund accumulated surplus and shall be expended only after a vote by the legislative body to appropriate a specific amount from said fund for a specific purpose related to the purpose of the fund or source of the revenue. There's no tax impact. This was recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0.
Article 10, road improvements and repairs, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $300,000 for the purpose of improvement, replacement, and repair of Crane Street and other roads, and to bring the roads up to town standards. Any savings from these funds will be used to continue improvements on other roads in town, to further authorize the selectmen to take any other action and to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, and other aid, if any, is available for said project. This is a non-lapsing warrant article until December 31, 2020. Estimated tax impact, 0.368 per thousand, recommended by the selectmen, 3-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee, 8-0. Article 11, Public Works Department 6-wheel dump truck, to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to enter into a 3-year lease purchase agreement in the amount of $90,000 for the purpose of leasing, purchasing a new F-550 6-wheel dump truck and to raise the appropriate the sum of $30,000 for the first year's payment for that purpose. This lease purpose agreement contains an escape clause. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact, 0.037 per thousand. Recommended by the selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 8-0. Article number 12. The Opera House heating system repairs replacement, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 for the purpose of repairs and or replacement of one of the boilers and improvements to the heat exchange system. If there are any savings on this project once the repairs, replacement, and improvements are complete, it shall be used for other energy improvements or repairs. Estimated tax impact, 0.025 per thousand, recommended by the selectmen, 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee, 8-0.
Article 13, Opera House maintenance and repairs, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 for the purpose of additional repairs, improvements, event equipment, and cleaning equipment at the Opera House. This may include using the funds as a grant match if needed to expand the improvements or purchases. The estimated tax impact is 0.006 cents per thousand. This is recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 14, transfer station repairs, replacement, equipment, and buildings. to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to replace, repair, fix, purchase, and maintain trash station equipment, buildings, containers, vehicles, and the purchase of an additional supply of bags, and to authorize the withdrawal of $25,000 from the transfer station special revenue fund created for the above purposes. There is no tax impact. This is recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and the budget committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 15, transfer station auger and pre-crusher, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 for the purchasing and installing of a new bulky waste auger and pre-crusher and containers. Further, to authorize the withdrawal of $10,000 from the transfer station special revenue fund created for the above purposes, with the remaining $50,000 to be raised by taxation. Estimated tax impact 0.061 cents per thousand. This was recommended by a vote of the selectmen of 3-0 and the budget committee by a vote of 8-0.
Article 16, Dog Park Engineering, Planning, Designing the Land, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $45,000 to provide engineering, planning, design, fencing, make land improvements, provide water, purchase equipment and supplies needed for the dog park. This warrant article will be offset by $22,500 in donations, fundraiser funds, and in-kind work, with $22,500 to be raised by taxation. If the amount of full donations are not received, the town will spend no more than $22,500 plus the amount of donations received. Estimated tax impact 0.028 per thousand, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0, recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 8-0. Article number 17, Parks and Recreation Playground Replacement, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $150,000 to replace, repair, and/or make improvements to the Remick Park Playground. This warrant article will be offset by $25,000 in donations, fundraiser, funds, and in-kind work, with $125,000 to be raised by taxation. If the amount of donations is not received, the town will spend no more than $125,000 plus the amount of donations received. Any savings seen on this project will be used toward replacement, repairs, and improvements in any of the town-owned parks and recreation locations. This article is supported by the Littleton Parks and Recreation Board of Commissioners. Estimated tax impact 0.153 per thousand, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 8-0. Article number 18, Unexpended Conservation Commission Funds, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Conservation Commission to retain the unexpended portion of its 2018 annual appropriations, said funds to be placed in the Conservation Fund. The unexpended portion of the 2018 annual appropriations is $11. No tax impact, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 8-0.
Article 19, Parking Lot Improvements and Expansion, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $10,000 for the purpose of improvements and expansion to public parking lots in the downtown area to bring the parking lots up to best practice standards, including improvement in pavement, lighting, drainage, pedestrian connections, and/or configuration of the lots. The estimated tax impact is 0.012 cents per thousand. This was recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 20, Property Purchase and Parking Lot Expansion, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 for the purpose of purchasing property, engineering, designing, and making improvements for the expansion of public parking in the downtown area. and to authorize the withdrawal of $20,000 from the parking meter special revenue fund to offset and reduce the cost of this purchase and work done. The estimated tax impact is .037 cents per thousand. This was recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 2 to 1, recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8 to 0. Article 21, Town Office Safety and ADA Improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $5,000 for the purpose of making the town administrative office ADA compliant and enhancing the safety of our employees. Also, to authorize the selectmen to use these funds toward a grant match for the same purpose if one becomes available. The estimated tax impact is .006 cents per thousand, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3 to 0, recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8 to 0.
Article 22, Mount Washington Regional Airport. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,000 for the purpose of supporting the Mount Washington Regional Airport. Estimated tax impact, .007 per thousand, recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3 to 0, and not recommended by the Budget Committee, 2 to 6. Article 23, Police Part-Time Officers Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to create an expendable trust fund pursuant RSA 3119A to be known as the Police Part-Time Training Expendable Trust Fund to pay for training and operational wages, including benefits for part-time officers. Further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,000 to be placed in said fund, that amount representing some of the amount of any remaining balance from the police department's 2018 annual budget for wages, both part-time and full-time salary lines. The expendable trust fund balance shall not exceed $50,000, and to further appoint the selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Estimated tax impact .001 per thousand, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3 to 0, and recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8 to 0. Article 24, Downtown Revitalization Loan Modification. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $22,031 in the general fund debt schedule for the purpose of moving the loan note from the parking meter fund to the general fund. The financing for this loan had already been approved in 2013. The loan maturity date is in 2023. If this article is approved, the loan principal and interest will become part of the general fund expenditures for the remainder of the life of the loan and will be paid from the general fund allocation for the next 5 years. Also, if approved, the parking meter special revenues fund expenditures for 2019 will decrease by $22,031, both in the default and proposed budgets. Estimated tax impact, .027 cents per thousand, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3 to 0, and recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 6 to 2.
Article 25, Unexpended Supplement Local Assistance Expandable Trust Fund. To see if the town of Littleton will vote to raise and appropriate $8,000 to be placed in the local assistance (welfare) expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from unassigned fund balance. These funds represent some of the unexpended portion of the 2018 annual appropriations. There is no tax impact, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3 to 0, recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8 to 0. Article 26, Chamber of Commerce Downtown Beautification. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,650 to support the downtown beautification efforts of the Littleton Area Chamber of Commerce. Any savings realized while purchasing these items will be used for additional chamber events and activities. It's broken down as follows. Downtown flowers, $4,250. Downtown flowers watering, $3,900. Pollyanna Gateway umbrellas, $300. Downtown piano tuning and painting, $2,200. Downtown seasonal decorations, $1,000 for a total of $11,650. At an estimated tax impact of 0.014 cents per thousand. This was recommended by a vote of the selectmen of 3-0 and a vote of the budget committee of 8-0. Excuse me.
Nathan Carroll with the Littleton Area Chamber.
Should go to the mic, please.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Nathan Carroll with the Littleton Area Chamber of Commerce. I do have one correction for you with regards to the line items. There was final information sent for this and the next warrant article after some further discussion with the budget committee. And so in terms of the line items, if you'd like me to detail, $4,250 for the purchase of flowers, $3,900 for watering, $300 for the Pollyanna Gateway umbrellas. Downtown piano tuning and painting should be $1,200. And the downtown seasonal decorations should be $2,000. And that was adjusted because of an increased cost and also in realizing that we can reduce the cost. And ahead of the next warrant article, the $755 that's listed should actually be $1,655. So that was, in the end, reduced by $100.
I have some added comment on that,
On which?
on the first one. Because this is a petition warrant article, we cannot change any of the wording on the signed petition. So if there is an adjustment in the number, even though you might have sent us what that adjustment was, we cannot do the adjustment before putting it on the warrant article unless you had re-signed petition put in. The amendment can come from the floor at the deliberative session, and it has to be a town registered voter to do that amendment, and you can have it written up, so when the warrant article comes up, you can have that warrant article adjusted through the deliberative session. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Karen. So you can change that when you get to the deliberative session. We just can't do it here because of the structure of the meeting, I guess. Article 27, Chamber of Commerce Downtown Community Event Efforts, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,755 to support downtown community event efforts of the Littleton Area Chamber of Commerce. Any savings realized while purchasing these items will be used for additional chamber events. Gathering of the Jack-o'-lanterns, $1,755. That's going to be corrected at deliberative session. Littleton Christmas Parade, $1,000. Total is $2,755. Again, it's by petition. As Karen explained, the tax impact is 0.003 cents per thousand. Recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and the budget committee by a vote of 8-0. Karen?
Article 28, Grafton County Senior Citizens Council Incorporated, shall the voters raise and appropriate $35,000 to Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, Inc. through the Littleton Area Senior Center and the Service Link Resource Center for services for Littleton residents in 2019. These services include congregate meals, home-delivered meals, transportation, outreach support, Service Link support, and more. In FY 2018, the Littleton Area Senior Center provided services for 810 Littleton residents, and Service Link provided services for 314 residents. The cost of providing these services was $509,032.32. This was done by petition as well. Estimated tax impact, 0.043 per thousand, recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0, recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 29, Boys and Girls Club of the North Country, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to support the Boys and Girls Club of the North Country in order to provide a healthy, safe, and productive after-school and vacation camp environment for the children from Littleton and the local community. The club provides busing from the school to the club for the after-school program. Estimated tax impact .012 per thousand. Recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 30, Birch House, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,080 to support the Support Center at Birch House, a community service program provided by Tri-County Community Action Program, Inc. This was done by petition. Estimated tax impact, .004 cents per thousand, recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, Article 31, North Country Home Health and Hospice Agency, Inc. We, the undersigned registered voters of the town of Littleton, New Hampshire, petition the town to place a request from North Country Home Health and Hospice Agency in the amount of $21,500 on the town warrant. The requested funds shall be used to assist in the delivery of long-term care services to the residents of the town of Littleton. The estimated tax impact is .026 cents per thousand. Recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 32, White Mountain Mental Health, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,696 to White Mountain Mental Health, recognizing that untreated mental illness results in loss of productivity at work, disruption to families and children, risk to the community, and loss of life through suicide. Treatment works, but only if it is available and affordable. This is a petition article. The estimated tax impact is .012 cents per thousand. This is recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 33, Tri-County CAPS Homeless Intervention and Prevent. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to support Tri-County CAPS Homeless Intervention and Prevention Program / Tyler Blaine House Homeless Shelter, a community service program provided by Tri-County Community Action Program, Inc. This is a petition article. Its estimated tax impact is .006 cents per thousand. This was recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0.
Article 34, Tri-County Transit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,000 to support the Tri-County Transit, a community service program provided by Tri-County Community Action Program, Inc., done by petition. Estimated tax impact, .005 cents per thousand, recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0. Article 35, Tri-County CAP Energy Assistance Service Program, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,000 for the operation of Energy Assistant Services Program, a community service program provided by Tri-County Community Action Program, Inc., done by petition. Estimated tax impact, .014 cents per thousand, recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0. Do you want me to do the next one, too? Do you want me to do the next one, Article 36? And you, I don't think we had those. You've got 36. Okay. Article 36, Above the Notch Humane Society, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to support the Above the Notch Humane Society with the care and feeding of stray and unwanted animals in our area. This was done by petition. Estimated tax impact of .006 per thousand, recommended by the Selectmen by a vote of 3-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0.
Almost there. Article 37, Amanuset Community Health Services, Inc. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 for Amanuset Community Health Services, Inc. ACHS is a nonprofit community health center that provides primary preventive care to anyone, regardless of their ability to pay. This will help ACHS continue to provide high-quality care to 2,266 current Littleton patients, as well as to reach more of those in needs. This is a petition article. Estimated tax impact is 0.018 cents per thousand. This was recommended by a vote of the selectmen 3-0 and the budget committee 8-0. Article 38 is Caleb Interfaith Caregivers, Inc. To see if the voters will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,000 to help support Caleb Interfaith volunteer caregivers that serves the needs of seniors in the community. This was a petition article. Estimated tax impact of 0.002 cents per thousand. Not recommended by the selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the budget committee, 6-0. I think I'll give you a little explanation here. It wasn't recommended by the selectmen because it hadn't, when the selectmen voted on these, it hadn't received the actual application yet. We can't change that. And the last one, Article 39, Pathways Pregnancy Care Center. To see if the town will vote by petition to assist Pathways Pregnancy Center in the amount of $2,500 to help in maintaining and increasing our baby boutique. Estimated tax impact 0.002 cents per thousand. This was recommended by the selectmen by a vote of 3-0, recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 8-0. That should do it. I want to thank the 12 of you that have now depleted to 7 versus the 9 of us that work here. But most importantly, this message is going to be broadcast to the citizens that want to see it and see the explanation of all these articles. Thank you again.
And I'll just do a final wrap-up. The 2018 town tax rate was $7.90 per thousand. The estimated default budget tax rate with all warrant articles is $8.17 per thousand. The total estimated default decrease, it's an increase, is 27 cents. The 2019 estimated proposed tax rate with all warrant articles is $8.30, and the proposed budget increase with all warrant articles is 40 cents. Thank you.
I think to be safe, because it's a hearing, I'll ask for a motion to close the hearing. Is there a second? Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Again, thank you.